It all started the day I finally moved into my new place. I had scraped together every last penny, counting down months until I could call this apartment with its sparkling pool tucked quietly at the back my own. That first night, I slept like royalty, thinking I did it. I finally made it. Everything felt perfect. Until morning. The next day, I was yanked from sleep by splashing and loud laughter. Groggy and confused, I stumbled out to my backyard and froze. My pool, not a peaceful oasis anymore. It was chaos. 3 women were sprawled across my lounge chairs, music thumping from a Bluetooth speaker, and floats bouncing across the water like they owned it. Leading the charge was Karen. Karen, I would later learn she had a reputation in the neighborhood, a local legend for bossiness, rule-bending, and making everyone else's life miserable. That day, she wore a wide straw hat, oversized sunglasses, and carried this look, like she owned every inch of the street. I squared my shoulders and approached, trying to stay calm. "Excuse me, you need to leave. This is private property," I said firmly. Karen barely looked at me. "Who are you?" she asked, like she had a right to demand answers. "I'm the new owner," I said. "This is my home," she scoffed. "Really? I wasn't informed about any sale. I know people at the realtor. You should have cleared this with me." I repeated myself, my voice steady but tense. They had no permission here. And I warned her, "Don't let me catch you here again." She stood slowly, water dripping from her hair onto my deck, and gave me this tight, unnerving smile. "We'll see about that," she said. Then, like some queen surveying her territory, she herded her friends out through the gate. That night, I sat alone in my living room, staring at my pool through the window. My stomach twisted as I replayed her words. "We'll see about that." Something told me this wasn't over, and I was right. Because in the days that followed, Karen's presence, sometimes bold, sometimes silent, kept creeping into my life, uninvited and impossible to ignore. So, after our first showdown, I decided it was time to fight back. The right way. But little did I know, this neighborhood wasn't just about quiet streets and polite waves. It was about power, and Karen was ready to prove she owned it. I decided to take control of the situation, at least for now. The very next day, I installed security cameras with wide-angle lenses, making sure every inch of my backyard was covered, especially the pool. I didn't stop there. I put up bright yellow private property, nitrogen monoxide trespassing signs along the fence, and right by the gate. The message was loud and clear. This wasn't just about Karen anymore. It was for anyone in the neighborhood who thought my home was some kind of public resort. I honestly believed the signs alone would be enough to shut it down, but Karen treated rules like friendly suggestions, meant for everyone except her. The cameras told the real story. Every single time I left for work, there she was. Sometimes she came alone, stretched out in my lounge chair like it belonged to her. Other times, she showed up with friends, snacks, and once even a massive inflatable swan I had never seen before. Watching the footage made my blood boil. One detail kept bothering me. She always came through the back gate. The lock was untouched. No damage, no force. That's when it hit me. She must have copied a key from the previous owner, fed up and running out of patience. I went straight to the HOA president, thinking this would finally put an end to the madness. That was my first mistake. She listened with a bored expression, then casually shrugged. There was nothing she could do. Later, I found out why. She and Karen were close, very close. Suddenly, everything made sense. The excuses, the indifference, the silence. That's when reality sank in. I was on my own. If I wanted Karen out of my pool for good, I'd have to handle it myself. So I called an old friend of mine, a chemist. I laid it all out. Karen's entitlement, her constant invasions, and most importantly, her vanity. I told him I wanted her next pool visit to be one she'd never forget. Before doing anything, I needed more information. I reviewed the footage carefully, over and over. Then I noticed something important. Before every swim, Karen spent a solid 5 minutes coating herself in the same expensive, high-end sunscreen. Every time, that's when I smiled. That little detail, that was my golden ticket. I told my friend exactly what I was thinking. Something subtle, but something that would make Karen rethink ever stepping foot in my pool again. When my buddy finally handed me the small, sealed container of the chemical, I treated it like it was a treasure chest. I held it carefully, almost afraid to breathe. He swore it was completely safe for anyone without that specific sunscreen, but for anyone wearing it, the reaction would be impossible to ignore. I had to be sure. I tested a tiny bit in a bucket with the same sunscreen Karen used. At first, nothing happened. I stared at it, tense, waiting. Then, within minutes, the water around the sunscreen shifted into a shocking, almost neon green, and the skin beneath it, even brighter, like something out of a mad scientist's dream. I couldn't stop grinning. This was going to be perfect. The big day arrived. I woke before dawn, scrubbing and cleaning until the pool sparkled like crystal. Every inch gleamed. Then, with careful precision, I poured in the chemical, measuring every drop. The water looked clearer than ever, as if it belonged in a luxury resort ad. Pure, irresistible bait. The sun climbed high, the sky cloudless. I could almost hear Karen's internal radar ticking perfect swim day. Sure enough, around midday, my phone buzzed. Motion alert from the backyard camera. I opened the live feed. There they were. Karen, with that smug, strutting walk, and 2 of her friends. Each one shimmered under a thick, glossy layer of sunscreen. Karen tossed her hat on the lounge chair, kicked off her sandals, and dove in like she owned the place. Her friends followed, laughing and splashing, completely unaware. The first few minutes were calm. To calm, then it happened. Karen froze first. Her eyes widened as she stared at her arms. Sharp, panicked yelps cut through the air. Deep green blotches spread across her shoulders and up her neck. Her friends looked down at their arms, and the screaming started, echoing off the fence in perfect stereo chaos. They scrambled toward the pool's edge, slipping and sliding over the wet deck, each move more frantic than the last. Karen was cursing me at full volume, gesturing wildly as if I had dumped acid into her pool. They grabbed towels and phones, trying to record the crime while desperately attempting to contain the madness. Karen hit record on her phone, her face a mix of rage and horror. She began ranting, accusing me of poisoning her, clearly expecting outrage and sympathy. But the internet had other plans. Within hours, everything was about to spiral in a way she would never see coming. By the time I got home that afternoon, the neighborhood had already witnessed Karen's transformation. Her video was everywhere, shared, remixed, and mercilessly turned into memes. My personal favorite, the incredible sulk, She was pacing up and down my driveway like an angry Hulk in flip-flops, still blotched and swampy green. The chemical reaction with her sunscreen had left a stench in the air, something between rotten eggs and burnt plastic, and it hit me before I even reached the gate. Neighbors had gathered at a safe distance, some pretending to check their mail, others blatantly recording every second. The moment she spotted me, she charged forward, finger jabbing my chest, yelling loud enough to wake the dead. "You'll pay for this. You think you can humiliate me?" I calmly pulled out my phone, hit record, and smiled. Smile for the camera, Karen. That only made her louder. One of her friends, still partially green, tried to hide behind her, but the crowd was already laughing. Across the street, the HOA president appeared, probably hoping to contain the chaos, but Karen's temper was like a wildfire. She started screaming about lawsuits, chemical burns, and how she was going to take ownership of my house after suing me. The president's face, absolutely priceless, like she wanted to vanish into the pavement. 2 days later, Karen made good on her threats and marched into the police station, ranting about chemical assault and attempted murder. But the officers had already seen the videos and, more importantly, my footage of her repeatedly trespassing. They noted the pool additive was safe, commercially approved, and harmless except, of course, to her brand of sunscreen. And the kicker? She admitted on record that she had been using my pool without permission. Case dismissed. The fallout was brutal. The HOA tried to distance themselves from her, but the memes kept the humiliation alive. Local teens started calling her Shrek's cousin at the grocery store. Weeks later, faint green stains still lingered on her elbows, a permanent reminder. She avoided the pool entirely after that, and my backyard finally became the peaceful oasis I'd dreamed of. As for me, I spent that weekend swimming alone, drink in hand, replaying the moment her face dropped when the green started spreading. Justice hadn't just been served, had been served poolside, with a side of pure humiliation.